Problems in our outer lives, relationships, money, work, are all mirrors of problems within ourselves, and we face them in our relationships and in the outer world, where we get ample opportunities, especially in relationship, to meet our most difficult aspects.
What we learn from our relationships most of all is what we need to work on, as well as what we have to work with. We learn about our own strengths and weaknesses. We learn where we're not patient. We learn where we're not tolerant. We learn what we have to share with other people. We learn about our strengths, what we can share with others. We learn how we can help other people become the very best that we can be.
Can we assert our individuality without having it disrupt human relations?
Well, I don't think we can put the desire not to upset people first. First of all, I think we need to find out what it is we need and speak of that honestly. And if it does upset relationships, it can be a very constructive process. Most relationships don't end because we're honest about what we need. Most of them don't end by us making good choices for ourselves. They end because we've saved up the need to do that. We've lied about what we need. We've suppressed that healthy exercise of will to the point where when we finally tell people what we need, it's explosive. It just tears everything up. So if we're honest, if we apply the will every day in our relationships, yes, it may stir people up and create dialogue, but ultimately I think it makes for better relationships.
So it may be an inappropriate fear to worry that if I assert my personal power and my free will, it's going to drive the other person away.
What's the main reason we don't do it? Is we're afraid of what will happen, rejection, alienation from other people.
I think one of the interesting concepts in the Edgar Cayce readings about relationships has to do with the nature of loneliness. That loneliness actually can be a purposeful experience. Sometimes people are alone and they don't have a close personal relationship and they want to know why. Cayce said very often it happens for two reasons. One reason is that I've been suppressing, let's say, some kind of talent or ability or a desire that I have within myself. And maybe I don't think I'm good enough, or maybe I don't think I'm talented enough, or maybe I don't think I'll be able to pull it off. Cayce said very often when we're lonely, it's because we're suppressing a soul desire that's trying to come out, trying to express itself. And loneliness gives us the opportunity to reflect on who we are and what we have to offer other people. A second reason for loneliness, often pointed out in the Edgar Cayce information, is that whenever we're lonely, it's a challenge, a prodding, to go out and find someone who is more lonely than we are, and try to help encourage and facilitate someone else to become the very best that we can be. And by doing that, Cayce assured a number of people that they would draw to themselves a perfect relationship for that individual. I think that the Cayce information and the Cayce histories and the Cayce files suggest that all of our relationships potentially can be good. But the best relationship we can have is an unconditional relationship. One where we love a person, because they're a child of God, because there's the spark of divine in that person, and we love them with no thought of something in return. That's unconditional love, where we just love and accept someone the way they are. Now, too often we want to change people. I've often had the thought myself, well, if that person really loved me, they'd change. The interesting thing about that was when we think about ourselves in regards to other people, we think, if that person really loved me, they'd accept me the way I am. The truth of the matter is we need to come to terms with who we are as individuals and what we need to change, not so much what we'd like other people to change within themselves. And if we really love people, we would learn how to love and accept them the way they are and help support them in changing the things that they need to change.
I'd have to learn how to forgive that person and accept that person where they are. I want to be accepted where I am, and most everybody else wants to be accepted where we are, because we can't be where somebody else would like us to be.
Well, how can we distinguish between a kind of macho, repressive willpower and, on the other hand, a more healthy, balanced use of the power of will?
Well, I think that often we equate will with domination or control. And so it has a kind of a negative connotation, a person who's willful or controlling. And I think that what we need to move toward in understanding the healthy aspects of will is the idea of dominion, of working within the context we're in, the people we're in, operating in right relationship with them, and instead of trying to control them, trying to work and cooperate with the system we're in. That, I think, is where the power of the will can best be seen.
Does it suggest women might find that easier than men in our culture?
Well, I think that women have a sense of how relationships work better than men, but sometimes they don't often take an assertive stance that men are prone to take more readily.
Personal ideal, as it relates to Mind is the Builder, allows us to establish first what would perfection look like if we could have it. So if we have that settled, firmly settled in our mind, then we can begin to change our attitudes in relationship to relationships.
From Edgar Cayce's perspective, there are at least 4 things we can do to help transform any relationship. The first is to really learn to love and understand ourselves. Cayce suggested that we really need to find out where we're coming from and what we have to share with other people if we want to cultivate friendships with people with perhaps we're having difficulties. The reason that works is with the fact that we draw to us people for a specific reason. We need to figure out what is going on in this situation. Is this person trying to help me learn how to speak up for myself? Am I trying to learn how to be more patient, more tolerant, more loving? Is this person exhibiting a quality or a trait that I have in myself that other people are seeing and I need to perhaps somehow transform? The reason that's important is to learn to love and understand ourselves is because very often if we think of the people that we like least of all in the whole wide world, if we would only remember that that person somewhere somehow has a best friend, we might ask ourselves, why is it different people perceive different things in different relationships? And the answer really is that we need to learn more about ourselves in whatever relationship we happen to be in. The second step Cayce suggested in terms of transforming a relationship is something he called setting an ideal. Another way of saying it might be to decide on a motivation. What's a better approach to this relationship than the one I've been working with? Maybe right now I find myself frustrated or angry or unhappy just by being around another person. Perhaps I could pick something better like being friendly or being understanding or being tolerant or being patient. Cayce suggested that once we pick an ideal or a map or a motivation that's different than the one we've been working with, we actually have the opportunity to have real transformation take place. Things can really change. A third thing in relationships, Cayce suggested, is the actual work. We need to work on improving a relationship, otherwise it's never going to happen. The application. Very often we have relationships where we think, I really should do something about that. But somewhere between the thought and actually following through, something doesn't happen. But what that doesn't happen is the application. Cayce said, if we really try, if we really begin to work with applying things over and over and over again, they'll become a part of our awareness. And the fourth thing to really improving a relationship has to do with something Cayce called expectation. If we think this is never going to work, Cayce would say you're right. But if we really anticipate the fact that this can change, because ultimately the only person that changes in a relationship is myself, you're right, real healing can take place. So those 4 things, learning to love and understand myself, setting an ideal, really working on the application, and then the 4th is expect things to change so that they can.
I don't want to make it sound too easy. It's anything but easy. But when it's given the time and attention that it needs, change can come.
I think people will begin to